The gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Christ.
Please be seated. There are some ingredients in life that are absolutely vital to survival. But those ingredients are so ubiquitous, so around us all the time, that we really don't pay attention to them unless they disappear. I mean, how often do you think of air, water, food, clothing, shelter, until something stinks so bad that you can hardly breathe, or a hurricane comes through and takes out your house along with clean water and your food and your clothing? It's only when stuff disappears that we realize how vital it actually is. Well, Jesus talks about two of those vital ingredients today in the Sermon on the Mount. In Matthew chapter 5, he says, "You're the salt of the earth, and you are the light of the world." Now, I know many of us have doctors who tell us to avoid salt and light, especially sunlight. But if you press them, those doctors will admit that actually salt and sunlight are vital to survival. What they mean is, stay away from too much of it, like we stay away from too much food or too much water. And it's easy to get too much salt and light because of where and when we live right now. In our culture, we don't unless you grow your own vegetables or slaughter your own meat, somebody's going to put some salt in it. We live in Florida, the Sunshine State. Plus, we have electricity, so we've got light all day long, all night long if we want it. But back when Jesus was talking, that was not the case. Salt was an expensive commodity, and for many people, light ended when the sun went down. When Jesus calls us salt and light, it meant a whole lot to the folks he was talking to, and not so much to us. But let's take a look and see what he's saying and how it actually is important to us. Jesus says, "You are the salt of the earth." Now, what difference does that make? Well, salt does two things. It brings out the flavor in food, and it preserves it to keep it from going rotten, which is important back when you live in the time BR, before refrigeration. What Jesus is saying is, when we follow him and do what he did, we're like salt for all of the people in the world around us. We add flavor, and we are a preservative. We add flavor to a world that by itself can get pretty bland. I mean, think about what most folks do in life. They get up, they go to school or work, they come home, they watch some TV or some YouTube, they check their social media, they go to bed, they get up the next morning and do it all over again. And how bland and soul-numbing. And lots of folks are trapped on that treadmill, and we all know some of those, and some of us have been that way. Some folks seem satisfied to stay in that rut until it gets deep enough to be their grave. Others want more in life than just putting one foot in front of the other until they drop dead one day. But there are really only two alternatives to a daily diet of drudgery. We can let God sprinkle some salt in our life and flavor it, or we can let the devil spice it up with some sin. And the problem with that sin option is it's just like getting too much salt or too much sunlight. It tastes good, it feels good at first, but then over time it can get unhealthy, and in time it can get deadly. We don't have to do that. Salt life with God, and we have the real salt life, not like those stickers on the back of cars. Okay, salt life with God has plenty of flavor without the spice of sin. God offers us fun without fear of getting caught, without fear of getting pregnant or arrested, without fear of dying from an overdose or cirrhosis. God offers us fun without fear and all the good without the guilt. Now, there's a double benefit when we choose to live and love like Jesus. Our life grows more savory and flavorful, and we add flavor to the whole world around us. We get to show folks that they don't have to get drunk or high to have fun. They don't have to lie, cheat, or steal to get ahead. They don't have to have a bunch of toys or sex to have friends. Now, I know that's true because I tried it both ways. I spent enough time on Sin Spice Island to get a bad case of heartburn. But back then in my life, I wouldn't leave it because I thought my only other option was the watery gruel of just, being good. Thank God he put some salty Christians in my life to show me how wrong I was and how full and flavorful life can be in his family. Now, we have the chance to be that same salt to our friends who are suffering heartburn from the sin of spice in their life. Now, if they think Christians never have any fun, let's show them how wrong they are. Invite them to your house for a meal. Bring them here for men's supper or women's supper or Sunday supper, or feed them some pancakes on Shrove Tuesday. Let's show them that we actually have fun together. Now, you may not want to bring them to a Sunday in Lent because the music and the mood is so somber. But Palm Sunday or Easter, bring them then, because we blow it out with pageantry. The point is, we're salt. Let's add some flavor to people's lives, because as we do, we will make them thirsty for the water of life that Jesus offers them. Let's add flavor, and let's be preservative. Because left to themselves, lots of folks are in a downward spiral. Their job is a drag, their marriage is on the rocks, their kids are acting out, they have some health or financial troubles, and our culture is getting coarser by the minute. Now, back in the 1970s, comedian George Carlin had a routine called the 7 words you can't say on TV. Well, today, George is dead, and there's only one of those words still left on that list. In many ways, life today is kind of like chunky milk in your refrigerator that's been there too long. But throughout history, when things have looked their worst, it was Christians who made the difference. Now, sure, the church has made some mistakes, some big mistakes, like the Crusades and the Spanish Inquisition. But on the whole, the church has improved and preserved civilization. Before printing was invented, it was Christian monks who hand-copied the works of ancient literature. And it's only by their work and the church's effort that we know about Aristotle and Plato and Julius Caesar and those guys. It was Christians who nursed people through epidemics and pandemics. It was Christians who took in the orphans when their parents died. It was Christians who built hospitals and schools and universities. It was Christians who wrote the Declaration of Independence and our Constitution, because we are endowed by our Creator with certain unalienable rights, such as life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And based on those rights, it was Christians who led the fight against slavery and sexism and racism. What the church has done to preserve civilization, we each get to do with our friends and our families. Now, 13 years ago, when my wife divorced me, you were my preservatives. You loved me, you supported me through that time, and this parish family has loved and supported countless other people through messes in their lives when they lost jobs or got sick or laid off. We get to be there with each other to deliver meals and to love and support and carry people through to the other side. We are the salt of the earth, both giving flavor to people's life and helping preserve them from the rottenness in the world around us. Let's be salty. Because if we aren't, well, Jesus talks about that too. He says, if the salt loses its saltiness, how can it be made salty again? It's no good for anything except to be thrown out and trampled underfoot. If we aren't willing to be salt in the world, God will throw us out, and he will find somebody else who is willing to do that. And you don't want that. So stay salty. Jesus goes on, you're the salt of the earth, you're the light of the world. Now, most folks are doing the best they can with what they have and what they know right now. But if they don't know Jesus and they don't have a parish family like this one, life is like walking around in somebody else's house at night, in the dark, barefooted, and somebody moved the furniture. And so when they stub their toes and bump into things, it's no surprise. And they knock stuff over and they make mistakes and they ruin their relationships and alienate their spouses and kids and friends, and they make a mess of their life. And people do stupid stuff, not so much because they're stupid, but because they just don't know any better. Bless their hearts. And they're stumbling around life in the dark. We are the light of the world. And each of us gets to be a candle. And candles are not very bright in and of themselves, but in the dark, a candle's all you need. We get to be candles and show people a better way to live and love than trial and error and stubbing their toe on the furniture. And being a candle doesn't mean you got to knock on doors or preach on street corners. It just means to shine by living your life, your faith, your hope, your love openly and honestly. And as you do that, people are going to notice. Like Jesus says, a town built on a hill cannot be hidden. Neither do people light a lamp and put it under a bowl. Instead, they put it on a stand and it gives light to everyone in the house. Let's live our faith, hope, and love honestly and openly. Let's love our neighbors as ourselves and serve them as we have opportunities. Let's love each other and serve each other as Jesus loves us. And as we do that, we give light to everyone around us. And Jesus tells us how people will respond. In the same way, let your light so shine before others that they may see your good deeds and glorify your Father in heaven. You don't have to preach. You don't have to dress funny. You don't have to interrupt people. You don't have to be obnoxious. We don't have to do anything but just be salt and light. And people are going to notice. And some of them will be curious enough to ask questions. Why are you being so nice to me? Why is it that you don't cuss like everybody else? Why aren't you afraid of the crisis du jour, the economy, the war in Europe, climate change, inequities, whatever it is that gets people off their screens and click on something else? When people ask us questions, let's be ready to answer. I'm this way because Jesus loves me and he wants me to love you. I'm this way because I trust God's going to get us through this somehow. Some folks are going to be astute enough to see that it's God inside of you. And if they ask you how you got him, tell them your story. Tell them your story and invite them here. And if you're not confident about what to say or how to answer those questions, in your bulletin today, there's a business card for Church of the Messiah. It's got our website, it's got our service times, it's got a phone number, it's got the address. Give them a card. And once you've given away your card, come back, get more, ask for as many you want. We buy them by the box. We get thousands of them. Now, if you still don't know what to say, get them here somehow, and I or any of our staff or any of our clergy will be glad to talk and listen to them. But it's you who's going to get them here, not me. Because you're the one they know. You're the one who served them. You're the one who is the salt that gives them a flavor of God. And you're the one who's the light that will give them a glimpse of God. You are the salt of the earth, and you are the light of the world. Let's be savory and shine.